Hey guys, Rex here. You excited about these climate lockdowns, huh? Been hearing about that one? Climate lockdowns. Did we not see this coming 10 miles away? Unbelievable. You know, there's an entire generation of kids that actually believe they're school teachers. Like Mrs. Popke from the third grade with her zero science professional experience is going to teach that stuff in school. And now all of a sudden, like, you look at each cloud with great terror as if they can't even define what the climate is. They do not understand the difference between climate and weather, nor do they understand the methods and materials that have been used to determine what the climate used to be. I know they can measure ocean temperatures with buoys. How long have they been doing that? A tiny section of time. Plus, who controls the methods and materials? Part of the scientific process is to ask who is doing the experiment. What do they have to gain if the answer goes this way versus that way? A lot of the guys who are doing these scientific experiments from the get-go, and the guys who are interpreting the geology is what it is. Interpreting the geology is saying what the climate used to be. Did you know there's a lot of flexibility in how they can skew those numbers? Those are approximations based on modeling. Is it modeling-based information, or is it data-based information from actual observations? There is a huge difference between a model and a huge difference between reality. As I demonstrate professionally at every class we do where we shoot at long range with the rifle, the modeling in your computer tells you where it should have landed. The bullet tells you where it actually did land. And they do not tell the same story. Hardly ever at all. Why? Because the world is more complex than that. So, who does the studies? Want me to tell you who? In general, giant, huge outfits that control the energy. BP, right? Outfits like that. Name them. There's a bunch of them. Giant, huge outfits that control the energy are the ones behind Let's Save the Planet. Did you know that? The evil oil guys that you hate so much? The evil oil guys? You with your plastic sunglasses, plastic shirt, plastic t-shirt, plastic iPhone selfies, plastic shit you put in your hair to make it purple, plastic shoes, plastic belt, running your phone off of lithium batteries that were harvested from a war zone, social justice like mercenaries out here emoting about the evils of the oil corporation who are the most attached to it. Like babies sucking on little cans of oil in their bottle. Like, whoa, unbelievable. How many trees have you planted? How much, what's your water situation? Do you farm? Do you have a garden? Are you saving the owls? Like, what are you? No, you type shit on a plastic keyboard while drinking cappuccinos out of a plastic styrofoam cup that was imported on a boat with huge diesel fuel. Like, it's ridiculous, right? Charging your electric car on a wire attached to a coal-burning power plant, which is less efficient than just burning the coal in your car in a steam engine if you had one. Right? So who's the evil guys? The evil oil guys are the ones who are basically heading up the environmental movement, specifically the climate change deal. Why? Because they've developed new ways to compete with each other. Carbon credit system was invented by those guys to put other guys out of business. And then they just pass little tokens around that you don't understand. Meanwhile, they're still doing exactly what they do. They just killed everyone who is a small competitor. When you wave your little flag about like, we need to like be carbon conscious, you are helping the giant companies win and the small ones to fail. They can't keep up because they're not in the club that invent all the new rules. Do you know how much oil it takes to put up a wind turbine? Quantify it. It is funny. It is hilarious. It is hilarious how dumb you are. They're saving the planet by putting up windmills that just destroy bird populations. You ever go underneath one of those that's been running for a year or so? If they make it that long, right? Unbelievable. Shit, and like talk about footprint. Huge. And then where did they throw them away? Did anyone ever look at that? They're made out of fiberglass. Some of the most toxic crap in the world that will never go away. Those little fine slivers just everywhere. They pile them. Just like, I don't know where to put them. It's exponentially worse than nuclear power, how messy that is. And an eyesore on the horizon. But because they got you by the emotions and you have zero brains, you'll absolutely jump through their hoops and do their groundwork for them to enslave yourself. Climate change. And now they want to do lockdowns. It's all about control and learning to jump through the flaming hoop when told, learning to when to roll over and bark. Do you think that the corporations that are pushing the carbon control stuff, right? By the way, interestingly, what's the lever on society in the future? What is the big, giant, huge lever that's going to be on society that's going to cause us to be part of the B system? Look at carbon on the periodic table and you tell me what number protons it has, what number neutrons it has, and what number electrons it has. Type that in the comments below. Carbon, look it up. See a connection to the concept of how could they possibly prevent you from buying or selling because they're going to leverage it because we're saving the planet unless you submit to the system and get this mark which tracks your credits and limits the amount of carbon you can do. They want to tax your breathing. They want to tax your cat breathing. That's your carbon footprint, is taxing your ability to breathe. Little brown shirts running around thinking they're saving the environment. In order to save the trees, we have to tax breathing. By the way, did you know that carbon dioxide is what plants crave? Do I have to get out the environmental guy again out here to do videos about Clarence the juniper bush and how, have you not read your science book from the first grade? Well, people my age probably still had the carbon cycle in the science book, but maybe, since the 90s or late 90s or whatever, I don't know when they stopped teaching about the carbon cycle. Because they couldn't teach it and then pull this shit off. And because school is more concerned with identity and feelings and emotions and less concerned with facts and science and mathematics and economy and calculators, they can pull this one off, right? Yeah, the carbon lockdowns, the climate lockdowns. Do you know that the priests in the Aztec days would jump around on pyramids cutting out hearts? You know what they would use to prove how smart they were? They would look at the frickin' weather. And they would see, they were scientists, and they would look at the weather and they would notice, okay, low pressure system coming in. It's going to rain tomorrow. Watch us do this magic. They do the magic. Wow, let's give him all the chicks and all the gold. He controls the world. No, dude, they were paying attention to the frickin' sky. Just like they were paying attention to when the solar eclipse would come. They put it on a chart. They mapped it out using things called logic. And they got graph paper and mapped, okay, here's the pattern of when the eclipses happen. So the next one will happen here. If these other 50 patterns are correct, then this next one will happen here. A snake's eating the moon. They're doing the exact same thing in 2023. They don't want you to learn about the cycles of the world. They don't want you to learn about the actual climate. They don't want you to learn chemistry. Because then you'll be onto them. You'll be like, bullshit. Where does the cord in that electric car go? it goes to Bruce Jenner's magic rays of sunshine generator. No, it doesn't. It goes to a coal-powered plant, or nuclear, or a pinwheel that requires more oil to make it work and build it and keep it maintained and put in place than it ever produces, which is even worse than burning oil and coal. But because you're emotional and they bamboozled you, now they got you. They're literally the guy on top of the pyramid back in the Aztec days, and you're literally the guy going, wow, he seems pretty smart. He knows the magic. And he wants to eat you, and you're going to like it. It's funny. I'm not worried about any of this stuff. I just find it very highly entertaining. Furthermore, why am I really doing this video? I am commanded to tear down the high places of false gods, smash the idols, make fun of the false prophets and false priests of the enemy. Because there's one God. You guys, with your thinking you're saving the world, your gods in their bullshit acquired white uniforms and robes, their lab coats, their priestly robes. I did really good in science when I went to college. I got a science degree. They are not smarter than people that work at McDonald's. And I can say that as the guy who did really good in the science program, the top student in my class. Don't put them on a pedestal. They are not gods. When you say follow the science, no. You follow the science first. Actually sit down and work out the numbers. Are you insane? Because you are not following science. They have a different definition of that word than you do. There's the science, which is like Snopes and their cat with a beret on and their olive drab uniform from a communist banana republic country and a bunch of mobsters trying to take all the money out of your pockets. That's the science that you think. Meanwhile, all the guys that actually work in those fields and the guys that actually crunch the numbers are like, it's not adding up. It's funny, right? My desire is that people quit jumping off the cliffs on these quixotic crusades to save the world when they don't even have a clue. I am telling you, boys and girls, don't be so easily fooled by your third grade teachers. Do you know who funds those systems? It's a racket. It is a racket. The education system is just as much of a racket as the military-industrial complex, and I hope you see that. What's the solution? Live old school. Love your family. Take care of your own stuff. Certainly do not depend on these guys to save you from the stuff they're saying is going to get you is not going to get you. They are trying to get you, and they're pointing at something else so they can ensnare you. Oldest trick in the book. Okay. I was back in my college years. There was a bunch of Asian kids that were coming to school. They'd come over here to learn science class. And I'd hang out with a lot of them because I like the international community and the students and stuff. I found it really fun to hang out and visit with them. I'd go back to their home once in a while. And some of them are bringing up the topic of climate change. And they're just quoting the pamphlet. Quoting the propaganda pamphlet, which was a lot of the classes that we were taking. And I asked them because they all respected me because I was the smart guy in class. And I was older than average too. I worked hard at it. It's not that I'm smarter. I just worked hard at it to actually know what was going on. And they're like, what do you think about that? And I'm like, man, you guys actually, you buy that? I'm like, what do you mean you would buy it? And they then could see that I could be bracketed in a pre-calculated firing solution of guys that would be against climate. Rex must be for oil. No, I'm for water cars, but I don't want to get blown up. I'm for water cars. I just don't want to get blown up by a drone, okay? But you guys, like, you have to verify. I'm like, tell me the scientific method. Tell me about peer review process. What questions do you ask about the one doing the research before you even start looking at what they said? What are their vested interests? Now look at the actual numbers. What are the methods and materials? Now you tell me what you think, because they already knew the answers. They just never connected the dots. And within about 5 minutes, they'd be like, oh, wow, you might be right about that. We better look into that. I'm like, yeah, look into it. Don't be so easily bamboozled. You are being drafted into a radical religion of mobsters to be their helpers. And you're unwittingly being drafted into an army of mobsters to do their work for them, to ensnare yourself. I was kind of surprised recently, a friend of mine who's on the same page as us, like for those of you especially that are on Patreon, we talk about this stuff all the time, and we talk about alignment, talk about the ways that God set it up and the ways that it's supposed to be, talking about how to survive and all that, right? He's like us. He's cool. He's on the same page. And I've known him since college. And I was ranting about this same rant, and he kind of stops and he's like, well, you know what, man? I actually was hardcore on that same thing too. Like, really? Because he's a chemist. He's smart. He is plenty smart. It's not that they're not smart. They're just, people are naive. They do not realize the propaganda. They're being bamboozled into a bunch of bullshit. And he's like, no, dude, like, what I believe the teachers. I did not see how they could, and then. So I'm not saying that everyone who does this is dumb. I'm just saying that, like, they leverage your naivety against you. They see that you're vulnerable there. You just can't comprehend how someone could be a mobster. You just can't comprehend how giant business interests would use tricky moves. Did you know that giant, huge, trillion-dollar industries, like the oil industry, like the steel industry, like all these outfits that are convincing you they are the devil, so that they corner you into a new system of trading these other credits where the real future business is going to be, which is basically monopoly control over who gets to burn the oil. They're going to ration it, and then it's really going to be expensive. It is a scam set up by the guys they told you are the bad guys. They're the bad guys. But you think you're fighting them, but you're actually executing their scam for them. You're just so naive. You could not believe that ever could happen. Why? Maybe you come from a small town. Maybe your parents were just smiling and making cookies, and you were watching Friends on TV and had no idea criminals exist. The mobsters do exist. And it's okay. I'm not worried about it. I'm just not going to lean on them to be my support system, right? If you found this video to be helpful, please subscribe. I know a bunch of you ain't subscribed. You probably should do that, because do you think that these guys doing this want this message to get out? I'm literally fighting uphill, up Mount Everest, through something thicker than peanut butter with their stupid algorithms. So absolutely thumbs up and subscribe. If you want to support the operation and get lots more of this, we do this on Patreon every day, like 60 to 70 posts per month about this stuff, with a lot more depth and material on how to execute on a new way of looking at the world, a new way to get off the x-axis, get off the x and the y-axis, get off the x is one, it's like triple meaning, right? And ascend above it, okay? And materialistically and spiritually survive this deal, okay? Both in the physical realm and the spiritual realm. Okay? We just had a post over there about talking with the Zulu class about silver investing for what's coming and why. Man, If we had followed the instructions more closely, we'd be shocked. And some of the insight that's in there, the science-based in the instructions, in the word. Like, there's a reason it says that the silver's thrown in the streets and it's not a figure of speech. What? People read over that stuff so quick. And our ears never are listening. There's so much information to glean from there, okay? So, just wanted to share that with you guys. Hopefully you have a good day. I'm going to go pull a bunch of fence posts that are in my way and work on some other projects. Have a good one. Rex out.